Got my tea, y'all. Let's see if that'll help. Let it steep a little bit. So here we are. I think this last witness, Reggie Wright Jr., who was a former police officer like his father, Reggie Wright Sr. And he owns his own company, and he was also the head of security of death row. He has given some such great insight as to what the mindset was going on during that period of time. So you have Tupac Shakur, earlier in 95, 96 is whenever it was, he was in jail because you remember he was convicted of SA. He went to jail. He went to prison. He was released from prison because when he went to prison, I guess his former record company no longer was messing with him. Suge Knight said, "Hey, you're an established artist. You would be great for death row." He had some sort of appeal going on or something happened. So Suge Knight paid that bond, and then he signed a contract with Suge Knight. During that time when he came out, he did hit him up. Great disc record. One of a kind for a very long time. But let me put my banner. Let me put it up, child. Because y'all will get to acting a fool if I don't. But allegedly, they were saying that as far as the music and far as the money that he was owed or getting paid, there was some issues in regards to that. Looks like we're back. People are coming back into the courtroom. So there was some tension, and from my understanding, from what I remember being a lot of information being explained, that there was some tension, and even the tension to lighten up the tension, it was suggested that they go to the fight, and they go to the fight. Now he has explained it for me that Tupac went to this fight because it was a dual thing. He was going to be able to make some money in regards to a sponsorship, and or he was going to be able to shave off some community service time by working with that charity function that they had. Let's make sure that we are okay. So they haven't pulled up the sound yet. So now some schools of thought is that Suge set him up because of the fact that the way these people shot, that there was just no way that Suge Knight didn't get as much damage as he got. But it is interesting to hear that the two people that were supposed to be his security, one of them was with him or over at clubs. What is it? 662, 602, and then the other one was still back in Los Angeles. So basically, Tupac had no security, because I've always wanted to know, why were they riding down this road and there was no security anywhere? And what was the security at the club? And what logistics did he have to figure out at the club? And why was it so difficult for him to get into the fight? That makes no sense to me. So we'll see. We probably have another I don't think we have that long. Let me see. We have another hour.
record and stand for the jury, please.
The parties stipulate to the presence of the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may be seated. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wright, would it be easier to look at the monitor on the witness stand, or are you able to see that better?
Pictures this size, I can see both ways.
Okay. All right. So you're now looking at State's Exhibit number 60. Who is that?
That's Trayvon Lane.
All right. And can Mr. DiGiacomo, do you mind putting up 62? Showing you State's Exhibit number 62. Who is that?
That's Mr. Davis.
You mind putting up 63? Showing you State's Exhibit 63. Who is that?
That's Mr. Anderson.
And then we had talked briefly about it, so I want to just show it. Showing you State's Exhibit 72. What is that?
That's a defo chain medallion.
And we'll touch on that in a minute. But we were talking about the beating of Orlando Anderson at the MGM. Mr. Knight was on probation at the time you had mentioned. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And then after you guys got back from Las Vegas back to the Southern California area, did Mr. Knight have a legal problem as a result of his alleged participation in that beating?
That's correct, sir.
And can you explain that to us?
They brought him in. Initially, they brought him in. They said for a 30 test for that he did with his probation officer. But while he was still in custody, they then added the charge of he violated his probation for assaulting Mr. Anderson.
He's on probation. He's on video, at least what appears to be participating in the beating of Mr. Anderson. And so he is charged with violating his probation.
That's correct, sir.
And do you participate in any of the preparation for Mr. Knight's hearing on his probation violation?
With his attorney, Mr. Kenner, I attended several meetings. Yes,
And then are you aware of a meeting with Mr. Anderson?
that's correct.
Can you tell us about that?
So we met him at his attorney office, Mr. Edie Fall. It was in Seal Beach, I believe, where his office was. And we met with him. The attorneys had an agreement where I guess they were going to make a settlement or something for and Mr. Anderson to come and testify on Mr. Knight's behalf, where I believe the settlement was about $60,000 because some of the death row people had assaulted him, and some would say for him coming up and testifying on the behalf of Mr. Knight.
Okay, so just to be clear, prior to Mr. Knight's revocation hearing, there was a meeting with Orlando Anderson, the person who was beaten in that video. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then there was an agreement that $60,000 would change hands between Suge Knight or Death Row or some aspect of that side to Mr. Anderson. Is that correct?
That's correct, but that was made between the attorneys, Mr. Kenner, who was also present, and Mr. Fall.
Okay. I'm not saying that you're the person that did that. I'm just saying you were.
I was at that meeting, myself and Norris Anderson, who was the general manager of the company at the time.
And then at that probation hearing, is it fair to say that Mr. Anderson said that Mr. Knight was just trying to stop the fight and not participate in the fight at all?
That was the testimony, yes.
And that was after he received the $60,000.
That part I don't know.
That was after the agreement for the $60,000.
It was an agreement in place, though.
Okay. And then is it fair to say that the judge disregarded Mr. Anderson's testimony and revoked Mr. Knight's parole? Well, did the judge believe Mr. Anderson's testimony?
So Mr. Knight was subsequently violated for his probation and received 9 years sentence.
And as a result, when Mr. Knight was imprisoned for those 9 years, who was running death row?
after about 4 or 5 minutes of his incarceration, I became the general manager of the company.
We show the death row. What do you call that?
Pendant.
Pendant. We show the death row pendant. Can you tell us about the distribution of death row pendants to various people that were associated with death row?
Mainly the artists received them, and then people close associates of Mr. Knight. They were given out to different people for Christmas presents of 1995.
Were you aware of whether or not Trayvon Lane had received a death row pendant?
He was one, yes, sir.
And is it typically wore on a chain around one's neck?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, Mr. Sand, cross-examination.
Mr. Wright, have you and I ever met?
No, sir.
You have
Curious why he asked
a
that.
podcast, I believe, right?
YouTube channel that I talk on.
I'm sure you're probably anticipating the next question. In your YouTube channel, you have spoken a little bit about me, for instance, right?
That's correct.
And
And you have spoke about me as well.
yeah. So in terms of your podcast or YouTube channel, and once again, I don't think it was anything derogatory. It's more like you never tried a criminal case, or I think Hollywood ass attorney. I think you had said something like that, right?
Well, you did about 10 interviews in the last 2 months, so I may have said something like that.
Now, in terms of your podcast stuff, it's very this pretty good point. At some point, you would actually instruct the Keith that hey, he can actually make money doing the YouTube stuff. Remember that?
It didn't go quite like that, but I did pass his number to a few YouTube channels after he and I had this discussion about doing something on my channel, but I refused to pay him because I'm not giving someone I believe is Tupac killer money.
Sure. You had a interview with a Mr. Monk. Do you remember that?
Detective Monk, yes, sir.
Was he a detective at the time?
He was.
Okay, so he's a detective at the time, and he sat down with you, and you had a conversation with him, and you basically told him that you had advised KPD about I don't know, how much you can get paid doing YouTube stuff. Remember that?
I don't remember that, no.
Now, you don't remember that, or you don't believe that?
I remember Kevin Coffey, but to say you can make $5,000 or $10,000, I didn't have any conversation like that with Detective Monk.
Okay, so you don't know or you don't remember. I just want to make sure we're different here.
I remember meeting with Detective Monk. I know I am the one that started passing Mr. Davis' number around to do more interviews to get him to talk. Yes.
Okay, so when you volunteered to Detective Mogg, KPD's number, you said, I set him up with a couple of interviews.
Correct.
And because I promised you, if y'all ever listen, I promised him I would. We talk bad about each other, but I'll hook you up. I'm kind of know all these YouTubers out here, and so I kind of hook people up with them. Quote, you want to make some money, N-word, unquote. And then question was asked by Detective Mogg, so what do you get paid for your interviews? And you respond, oh, I get about $2,500, $3,000 a show. You remember that?
That's accurate, so I might have said that.
Now you also said 5,000. I got my F. He was crying about his taxes. You were referring to Keefe in that, right? He was crying about his taxes, Keefe.
Not sure.
I got him about to go blast him next week. He's getting 3,500. So they pay you because they get views. They get paid, man. YouTube, every million views you get about 6,000 to 10,000. And then
That's the channel.
Okay.
Not the person.
And then once again, I'm talking about the YouTuber. And so if you do a bunch of them and you get 100,000 and they break them up into like 5 or 10 minute segments, and you can get a 15-second segments from me, and you get 200,000 people to view it, you can make $8,000 to $10,000 off of me. And you just gave me 2,500, 3,000. You remember saying that to Detective Mogg?
I'm sure those sound like accurate statements, so
It's
I'm
an
sure I did.
And once again, it's clear to show that there's a business with YouTube, right?
That's correct, sir.
And so when you post something online, you're posting it online with the hopes that you're going to get paid for that.
Yeah, and that didn't start until about 2021.
Sure.
Or 2020, after COVID. Yes.
Now, with regards to your role here, you were the head of security for Suge Knight.
Correct.
And I want to make sure I'm clear. Where did you grow up in Compton?
I mean, my address is 1628 East Pine Street, Compton, California.
Where's that at in terms of, because we're assuming, and you could tell this jury otherwise, that wherever you grew up or whatever your street was, you, by default, was part of a certain gang or club.
I never gang banged. I always wanted to be a police officer growing up. However, guys that I grew up with, was in the sandbox with, played sportswear. Yeah, they were Mob Pyro's affiliate.
Okay.
Some police officers, some football players,
Right.
several type of people who grew up in our community.
And at some point, you get yourself out of it. You become a police officer.
I never was in it.
All right. Thank you for correcting me. You become a police officer for about 5 years,
90 to 96, 6 years. Yeah.
6 years, and you have to retire medically.
Correct.
And you had shared with us earlier that you created the security company. You were moonlighting, sort of doing your job during the day and then doing this other side hustle at night.
That's accurate.
And that side hustle became your full-time gig when you were no longer a police officer.
That's correct, sir.
And so in terms of who you were, the main service you provided services for would have been Death Row Records.
95%. That's correct, sir.
And in essence, I mean, this was your number one client, right?
I agree with you.
And you spent a lot of time with Shook.
Eventually that grew, but yes, 94, not as much. 95, 96, yes, sir.
Okay. And you're providing services for Shook in terms of security
For Suge or his company?
for the Death Row label.
That's correct, sir.
And you actually had created a company specifically for the security aspect of it, right?
That's fair.
And that's the Wright
Right way,
Way
protective service.
Protective Services. Okay. Now, as you're going about doing that, you had shared with us a little bit about some of the things you had done, and you shared with us that hey, there was something that happened at one of the award ceremony. You talked about that, right?
At the Soul Train, that's correct.
And you said that at that Soul Train incident, that my client was present when some other guy flashed a gun or something like that.
That's correct.
It wasn't
It wasn't your client. No, sir.
And once again, your security, your former police officer, did you ever report that incident to police?
They ran. Actually, police detained the subject outside the gate or towards the gate. What happened to him, I don't know, because I was more interested in getting my clients inside the war show.
And your father, just to correct my memory, is a lieutenant at the time with Compton. Or was he captain?
At that time, Lieutenant, sir. Yes, sir.
And his role and what he was responsible for was the gangs in Compton.
That's correct, sir.
So it would have been information he would have maybe picked up or you would have told him.
That's what people get confused about law enforcement. Compton is a city about 8 to 10 miles away from, well, that's by USC is where this incident happened. That's about 20 miles away from Compton. And so Compton PD and LAPD don't share information with each other like people think in law enforcement.
Right. But you're talking about someone who's from Compton. You're saying that guy right there who's from Compton was present at that particular event.
Wasn't a big thing. It was just a guy that brandished a weapon.
Right. So in your mind, it's not about this idea that this is a gang sort of thing. It's just some idiot with a gun flashing a gun, right?
I agree with you.
And
But
so,
they were also protecting Bad Boys Records.
okay, well, we can talk about that in a
Okay.
second. In terms of your role, though, in your company, you at some point, you obviously are now working with Suge, and there's this idea with Death Row Records that there may be sort of a tension in the air. Was there anything going on during that time period prior to September of 1996 that was happening that was telling you, hey, I need to make sure that Death Row Records is protected?
You always had an element because of incidents when you go out to nightclubs, the party scene. It's always an issue.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And because you're dealing with someone like Suge Knight, and at that particular point, any of those other people that was working for him, like say the entertainers, right? You're talking Snoop, you're talking Tupac, that you would have adequate security to protect them, right, say from fans and that kind of stuff.
I called it my cell was to be good witnesses. Mr. Knight had just went through a situation with one of his artists, Snoop Dogg, that was on trial for murder. And they ended up beating the case. But they had got a large judgment, mainly because of the qualifications or the lack of qualifications of the security officer that was acting as a security officer that shot him and killed the person. And so when you have a big company like Mr. Knight had, I thought it was best, and he thought it was best, or maybe his attorneys, I don't know, his label, that let's get some professional people around you.
And so for the most part, your practice was to hire people that were either off-duty police officers or retired police officers.
That's correct, sir.
And you did that because they were properly trained and you could trust them in terms of their judgment.
That and my cell was to be a good witness.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
But with regards to their roles obviously at the end of the day were to protect the people that were your clients. That would have been Death Row Records and whoever you assigned them to.
As best you can.
So in terms of what happens here in Las Vegas, right? Your testimony is you arrive here to Las Vegas and you're here on Friday.
Correct.
And you're here to get ready for what's happening on Saturday.
Friday night, the Coke Club did open. Like I said, it wasn't majorly attended, but definitely for Saturday night, yes, sir.
Yeah. And in fact, Tupac and Suge didn't arrive until Saturday anyways.
They didn't come up until Saturday, that's correct, sir.
And they drove up.
They drove up, yes, sir.
So they drove up, you're there, you're working, and you're at 662, right?
I'm at 662, yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to show you here an image. I'm going to ask the clerk to mark as proposed offense exhibit next in order.
See, I think? Yes.
See?
Yep.
May I have a turn?
You may.
You recognize this?
That's Club 662, yes, sir.
Okay. And with regards to, I'm sorry, and with regards to that photograph, would that been an accurate depiction of 662 around the time period that we're talking about here?
I agree with you, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, at this point, I move for the admission of proposed offense exhibit C.
Any objection, state?
Nope.
So noted.
May I publish, Your Honor?
You may.
I'll show this to the jury here real quick. So this is a picture of 662. Now, you shared with us a little bit about what was happening on Saturday night. Attorney basically said, hey, if we really want to get this club, I guess, passed in terms of its licensing, maybe we do something that helps the community, at least does an outreach. Is that what we're doing?
I think mainly to get the police officers there.
Okay. And with regards to that particular night and so forth, you said it's something to do with boxing. This is a Barry's boxing benefit. Is that what that was?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So this picture would have been taken pretty much at the time of when this event had gone down in September of 1996.
I believe that night or
Yeah.
or that week. Yes, sir.
And with regards to Barry's boxing, do you know anything about what Barry's boxing is about?
Just that he was a retired police officer that was helping young kids in the area with boxing. That was about it. Or association or foundation to raise money for youth coming up. This is what I remember.
So, Mob James just testified a little while ago.
Okay.
If his representation was there was no event like that was happening in September of 1996, was he be wrong?
Let me just say this. They don't be in the know like that. We're not as transparent as maybe we should be with the homeboys.
I mean, but obviously this is sitting on the front sign of the entrance going into the facility, right?
I went in that club and I ain't never noticed that.
Well, let me ask you this though. In terms of what was happening, was Mob James the head of security that night?
So James' responsibility is he had a lot of juice with the homeboys, and they have something they call Code Red, where everybody come out and support each other. And James was that person that she looked through, even during the Snoop trial, when Snoop was having problems with his homeboys coming up here, messing with him and stuff. They were hired to be outside the courthouse to keep them away. And that was James' role. So, and James was with Suge at the beginning. And quite frankly, he might be a little upset that my guys kind of took a lot of their roles or their responsibilities.
Right. So on this particular night, there's actually Metropolitan police officers that were they hired by you to be on the outside?
Well, I would say Club 662 or under Mr. Khaleesi and the person that was running the club under their direction. I knew they were going to be there, but I didn't speak to anyone from the police department to say, this is how much y'all going to be getting paid. I need you to do this. I just knew they were going to be working from the door out.
So, yeah, okay. And really the concern at this particular point that you had, as well as I'm assuming Mr. Khaleesi as the attorney, is you wanted to make sure everything was going to go well for the club.
That's correct. That's fair.
In essence, and to help Shook with passing up this particular club, right?
That's correct, sir.
So one of the things that had happened that you had shared with us is that Friday you meet with Khaleesi and you learn and you're instructed that your people are not to be carrying firearms.
Inside the nightclub.
Right, inside of the nightclub.
That's correct.
All the way up until the time that they get to that door, they're not supposed to be carrying firearms.
Inside the club.
Are you aware that the Red Alert people from Mob James were all carrying firearms that night?
Well, I had problems with that. My guys were strict, law enforcement. They didn't care about, they didn't have a relationship with James and them as I did. And so they would search them. And if they got one in, who knows? But there was always issues with them about being searched. But my guys would still, they were like, hey, if you want us here, we searching everybody coming to this club.
Right, so that was important for you, but Mob James says otherwise. He said that was
Okay. If they snuck them in,
and
it happens.
And yeah, and with regards to your meeting with Mr. Khaleesi, once again, you're there, and do you have at that particular point any ownership interest at all in Death Row Records?
None.
So you are a separate entity. You are just the security company hired to provide security for Death Row Records.
My company, Right Way, was making money, but I also received a salary from Death Row.
Okay. So, and you're in this meeting, and once again, the meeting is to help Suge get this club approved so he can make it happen.
That's correct, sir.
And your job is really honestly is just somebody who's providing the security to the club.
On that particular night, that, but I'm more, some would say at one point, Suge right-hand guy. But my main focus was Suge Knight entities. It wasn't just the recording artist. It wasn't just the record club. It was everything that Mr. Knight was trying to invest in at the time.
So you're telling us that not only were you providing security, but you're also like an employee for Death Row Records.
I was both.
Okay. Were you drawing like a paycheck every 2 weeks as an employee?
I was, sir.
There wasn't no under the table stuff like Mob James would have been telling us.
We didn't do that. Right, we didn't do that.
And with regards to Mob James being paid, you're telling me that he would have been paid the same way with employee checks and so forth from Death Row Records?
Bob James wasn't one of those employees. Like I said, he was just called on special events. I only think James made his money by guys in the line that were ballers or shot callers or whatever that he would bring to the front of the line.
So just drawing your attention back to let's say around 4:00 of Saturday, that Saturday.
Okay.
Where were you?
At the Luxor Hotel.
Okay. And did you ever, what happens after 4:00 for you?
I didn't head over to the club until, about 7:30. Got a call from Mr. Alexander and Mr. Shakur. Mr. Shakur was very upset that night because Mr. Knight, always late. And he actually took a taxi cab. I don't know if most people know, over to the fight because he was like, tired of always coming to the fight late, waiting on Suge, calling me because most people call me because they know I usually can get hold of Suge. And they used to have phones in the hotel lobbies back then. And I remember him and Mr. Alexander calling me, and he told me he got on the phone because he was so upset. So we taking the cab over there. We going over there right now. We'll meet him over there. You know, he had the song was the interest for for Mike Tyson to enter the ring on, and he wanted to be there. And he got impatient with Mr. Light being late.
Now, up until this point, you had developed into the person that if you wanted to get a show, they would call you, right?
In the streets, meaning when we out and about. He had an office staff, assistants, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Tesfaye Roy, that were in the office. But generally, if I call Suge, he'll pick up.
But with regards to you, usually you would have been with Suge in order for the call to be made, right? They're calling you and like, hey, we're Suge now, he's right here.
That's correct.
So on this particular night, Tupac is upset because Suge is obviously late and calls you.
His bodyguard Frank called, but he got on the phone.
Yeah.
You know anything about Mr. Shakur? He's a hands-on guy. Yeah. And he eventually just said, hey, you can't get a hold to him, we gone. And they took a taxi over to the fight.
And so you have Frank Alexander, you have Tupac, and no other bodyguards protecting Tupac that night.
Yeah, Mr. Kevin Heckey was supposed to attend, but he didn't. He wasn't there, and I didn't know that he hadn't shown up yet.
But you are aware at that particular point, Tupac was the most famous rapper almost in the entire world, if not the entire world, and you only assign one person and another person calls him sick.
He didn't call and say he just didn't show up. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't unusual for Mr. Shakur to roll around with one guy and his outlaw guys.
Interesting.
But once again, you're telling us it's only Frank Alexander that's coming from your office, right?
That is correct.
And you also share with us that there's other people inside of 662 who are patting down.
Interesting. So him being upset with Suge, where the streets were saying because of the record deal, he's saying, according to his testimony, that Tupac was upset. That Tupac was upset because he didn't want to be late for the fight. That apparently Suge Knight ain't never on time. So Tupac took a cab. He was like, I'm not waiting on y'all. Y'all come on. But it is interesting to note that he didn't have the level of security that he should have had.
The Mob James crew, but you can't send any more people over to be there for Tupac?
If I knew there was going to be an issue that eventually happened, of course I would have. I would have asked him to stay in the hotel.
Now,
I knew what was going to happen.
You are aware that this was fight night, this was Mike Tyson, and that everyone in the world would show up to Las Vegas to be there for the fight. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in your opinion, only if you believe that Tupac was somehow going to get into a fight or something along those lines, would you have provided more than just the one person? I'm just asking for your clarification.
I would have had an army around him if I knew something like that was going to happen or suspect something like that was going to happen. But the gentlemen that were with them and the ones that you seen kicking on Mr. Anderson, those were security as well.
That was who security?
death row style.
Oops.
But once again, let me make sure I'm clear. You, at this particular point, only have one security guard with all these other people from, I don't know, from Death Row Records who are not security guards. They're all gangsters, mob high root.
And I trust more than I trust my security. Yes.
So more than you would trust cops and off-duty cops and retired cops, you trust those mob high root guys?
I do personally.
Okay. Now, in addition to that,
Not my Pyru.
after they go in for the fight, right? I'm assuming that Frank Alexander probably didn't have a ticket.
You know, that was always an issue with Mr. Knight.
Yeah.
He promised everybody that they can go to the fight. And when we get to the door, it's always an issue.
Right.
But one thing about him, he will get his, at least Mr. Shakur, one security in, if not both, and myself. He will make sure we got in.
Okay, so they all get in for the fight, and then for some reason, Bruce Seldon takes a phantom punch, falls to the ground in the first round within a minute and 45 seconds, right?
You call it Phantom? If you say so.
I'm just looking at the tape, right? All we got is a surveillance. So he falls to the ground, the fight is over. They leave the fight, right?
Hyped up. You see him?
Yeah, and Tupac was very hyped up.
Hyped up.
So did you get a call from Frank Alexander saying, hey, the fight ended early, we're on our way?
Not one. And that's normal.
Okay, and I want to make sure we're clear about the type of communication you had. So cell phones, I'm not sure were available to everybody. You had one.
Pretty much everybody had cell phones, but they were expensive. You called me after 7 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah.
But
He doesn't get it. But everyone else-
but I did have next cell phones. We had about 8 to 10 of them. They did dual jobs. My guys knew it better be emergency to pick up that cell phone.
Yeah.
But the two-way walkie-talkies on the next cells, you could use it on the call. That's how we communicated. On that picture with Buntry, you'll see one hanging out of his pocket. That's what the type of
Okay.
next cell phones we had.
And so going back again to what Frank has, Frank does have one of those radios.
Yeah, one, but later learned, after we do Monday back quarterback and stuff, that it was dead.
So he is there. He doesn't call when you leave the fight. Now, does he call you after the situation happens with Fernando Anderson?
No, sir.
They all rush out, right? They all go back to, I think, to Luxor.
That's correct.
But you don't know that because no one calls you.
Haven't heard anything. Didn't know it was an issue.
So you're still sitting over at 662. You're worried about making sure the club passes inspections, and you're there and you're waiting. In the meantime, people get picked up at the Luxor, and then they're transported all the way to Suge Knight's house.
I mean,
Once again, if you don't know, you can just
yeah,
tell me.
yeah. I just assume
You know, just-
yeah. I don't know.
Now, at some point, they're traveling down Flamingo, and the shots occur at that particular point, right? But you don't know.
Correct.
And so you're sitting at the club, and you don't know.
I wasn't sitting, but yeah.
Oh, well, whatever. I mean, I'm sure you're working, right? So you're working, and your concern is making sure the club passes, and that the club passes for Suge Knight. Even though his attorney's present, all these cops are on the outside, and you have the security proficiency of Mob James on the inside, right?
And about 25 to 30 of my guys.
And so, once again, yes, 20 to 30 of your guys,
Correct. Yeah.
retired police officers or off-duty police officers,
Correct.
and they're all there.
Correct.
And at some point, you get notice that Tupac has been shot.
I got notified. Correct.
Was it through the next walkie-talkie stuff?
No, sir.
How did that happen?
Mr. Williams and Mr. McDonald ran up to me and told me.
Okay, none of your people, but two of the people that were associated with the death row people.
What time's Raj?
And they're the ones who told you that, hey, something went down with Tupac.
Correct.
And so at that particular point, what did you do?
Like I said, I didn't believe him at first initially, but we talked seconds now. Mr. Khalees somehow, verified that, yeah, something's going on. And then me observing a few of the police cars that were assigned at the working the parking lot or the taking off license sirens going towards that way made me believe that something's going on.
Now, did Suge Knight ever appear at the club and continue partying that night?
I don't know, but I have heard James say that before. But
What about just from your Monday night sitting down with your people going over what should have been done better? Was there any conversation or any way that you learned that Suge Knight actually showed up to party the night after the shooting?
the party was over. The party was over. They probably were still there at the club, but it wasn't like no partying going on, especially after people heard what happened. I can see that.
Now, we talked a little bit about the death row chain. Do you recall telling Detective Mogg when he visited with you that you sold your death row chain because of hard times?
I had a platinum one. That's correct.
Now, later on, when you're testifying in the grand jury, remember doing that?
I still have my gold one, if that's what you're asking.
So when the question is asked in the beginning about your death row change, you never tell Detective Mogg, for instance, that it's a platinum one, right?
I don't know.
Let me
You
just
tell me.
The camera's on. You want to turn the camera on?
Oh, sorry. So this would be page 21 counsel of the surreptitious report or recording. So you say, question that was asked by Detective Mogg, you were describing the change as cheap. He said, he had asked you, got a $300 change? I said, yeah, one of those cheap little chains because they were messing around with the same women and they got one and he got mad about it. My
Are
presumption.
we talking about Kifi?
Yes.
Yes.
So what? What did expensive ones look like? Do you have a picture of those? And you said, yes, sir, I can show you the one that Tupac would have. And then the question's asked of you by Detective Mogg, did you ever get one of those chains? And you respond, yeah, I had one. And then the question was, what happened to it? And you said, shit, hard times hit. And Detective Mogg commiserates and says, yeah, I hear you. You said, got to get rid of it somehow. And then Detective Mogg asked, what did you get for it? And you said, I got about 5,000, right?
Yeah, that was the platinum one.
Okay.
Or the white gold one. You can watch, and I'm sure you have several interviews, pictures with me with my gold chain on it. I wear them on several of them YouTube videos.
But fair to say, of course, that, when you said you had one, it's not one gold, it's not one platinum, right?
Like I said, the one I sold was the platinum one.
Now, in addition to that, later on, when you're testifying before the grand jury, the question that was asked by one of the jurors was, and I want to make sure I'm clear because I don't want to mess up I want to be accurate with you.
Your Honor, I think this is improper impeachment or refreshing. I'm not quite sure what you're asking predicate questions.
Let me just do it as a refreshing of his recollection, Your Honor. I just didn't want to.
So it's sustained. So I don't know that he said he doesn't remember.
Okay. So let me ask you this. You were asked by a juror.
Again, I think you have to ask the substantive question first. Determine whether or
Mr.
not.
Blood, you're gonna have to apply because your mic's not.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think you have to.
You
I
approach.
can stand. I apologize, Your Honor.
Everyone approach.
So we got a sidebar going on. They've cut the sound of the feed. All right, they're back.
Sorry. So were you asked this question by a grand juror?
Again, Your Honor, I think you have to ask the predicate. He's trying to impeach and/or refresh recollection about something of substance. You have to ask procedurally. You have to ask the substantive question first, not what you're asked this.
Are you talking about the chain question?
Yes.
We've gone up and down about the chain.
And so I believe what he's already answered the chain things. I don't understand. Are we impeaching or?
Now he's impeaching, saying that he's given an inconsistent statement in the past. So overruled, he can proceed.
Do you recall being asked a question by a grand juror? Do you still have your death row pending?
Correct.
And you had said, yes, you do.
I do.
You didn't say there was gold. You didn't say it was platinum. You just said, I had my death row pending.
That's correct.
Now, one of the other issues that we've talked a little bit about is and once again, I apologize. Maybe the state can refresh my recollection because maybe I was thinking about something else. You have been convicted of a crime.
I am.
And with regards to that crime, it was a felony.
It was sales of marijuana.
No, back up here real quick. It was sales of marijuana and it was also embezzlement. Is that what it was?
No,
Money laundering?
Money laundering.
Ah,
No money going in.
and with regard to those two things, that happened in California.
No, actually, well, they have the reason why I got in trouble because it went across state lines to Memphis. It's actually Memphis, Tennessee.
And because it was across state lines, it was a federal case.
Correct.
And that happened way after you were a police officer.
Yeah, that's 2019. Well, 2017, I believe.
And at some point, you become the general manager of Death Row Records,
That's in 1997, sir.
1997.
That's right.
So Suge Knight is in Las Vegas, and you were with him every single day. And in September of 1996, he just happened to get in this fray, and next thing you know, he's going to prison, right?
I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this. Why did Suge go to prison?
He violated his probation.
Right. So you knew, of course, that he was on probation, right?
The
Before he
whole,
came
the
out,
whole time I was with him,
you did.
from 1994, yes.
And so you knew that the number one person from Death Row Records, the primary principal for you, potentially could go to prison if he got into a fight, for instance, right?
Correct.
And on this particular night, you weren't around for him when he was in this quote unquote fight, right?
I was around with Mr. Knight about 70 to 80% of his life. So I guess a lot of 20%, I wasn't with him.
Okay.
Public, and when I say that, I mean public. Because a lot of times he laid up, sleep with somebody, I wasn't with him.
So in the most important time of Suge Knight's life, of having your protection, you weren't there for.
Unfortunately not, that's correct.
And then you became the general manager of Death Row Records.
By his calling, not anyone else.
All right, no further questions.
All right, State, any further questions?
So that was our last point. In terms of who determined who's going to run Death Row Records while Mr. Knight was in prison? Sorry. I'm sorry. Who determined? Who made you in charge of Death Row Records while Mr. Knight was in prison?
He did, and I visited him 4 days a week during that time while he was incarcerated.
Anything further on that, Mr. Sanchez?
Just one clarification. So
Okay.
Suge Knight made you general manager when he was in custody.
That's correct.
No further questions.
Anything else? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, any questions for this one? Of course. All right.
They've gone back to the sidebar. I think tomorrow, which is Wednesday, it's the time is going to be wonky. I don't know if they're going to start right at 9:00. We're going to hear from the judge at the end of this day. I think there's something that she has to put on her schedule or have to put something on her schedule. So I don't know if they're going to be here tomorrow or start at a different time. But we will see. Because day 2, they shot out a lot of their witnesses. And like I said, we've gotten 6, 7 witnesses today. Eight witnesses today. And the last 3 witnesses have been eventful. I am curious to see if the jury has any questions for Mr. Reggie Wright Jr. Very curious to see if they have any questions for him. Because you remember, in Nevada, a jurist can ask witness questions, which I think is just top tier. And I probably have said this throughout the
All right, Mr.
broadcast.
Wright, I have a couple of questions for you from our jurors. First, if they knew the cell phones were for in case of emergency, why wouldn't they call once the shooting took place? Why did you find out later in person?
Not sure. I don't know why they didn't call me. Mr. Alexander's responsibility. I didn't hear from him.
Okay. Was there anything in writing regarding the transfer of management power to you over Death Row Records?
I wouldn't call it power. Just, dealing with the day-to-day operation. The one that signed people, artists for him. I did everything for him. I dealt with his women. I dealt with his parents. I dealt with pretty much everything while he was incarcerated in jail because I was going back and forth, seeing him, the 4 days. I spent hours on the phone with him, and I was just his point of contact person.
So was there anything in writing regarding that?
Not to my knowledge, other than,
Okay, were there any witnesses to it?
well, there's a young lady sitting in here right now that I signed, while he was incarcerated to the record label.
There was a writing?
I'm sorry.
You signed some, what did you
You don't
sign?
sign her as an artist.
Okay. State any questions based on those answers?
Nothing state.
Defense?
I do.
Okay.
All right, so I want to make sure I'm clear. You become the general manager of Death Row Records, and what was your job responsibilities?
I did everything, to be honest. I brought Miss Shakur up to the prison to meet with him. I was talk to several, putting the albums together. When I met with Jimmy Iovine, who was our distributor at the time, negotiated deals with them. Everything I did was approved by Mr. Knight, but I was his point of contact.
Did you ever have a power of attorney signed by Mr. Knight to sign on his behalf?
No, what I would do is have everything generated, and I would send it. His attorney would come visit him on Tuesdays. If it was something real important, he would sign it on Tuesdays. And if I needed before then, he was married to a young lady by the name of Michelle, or at least she thought they were married, and she was signed. She had the power of attorney to sign, but she didn't deal with anyone. And then we also had a rubber stamp that two of his female friends had to sign checks or to sign some contracts if they would take them.
So if there was anything wrong with the bank account, for instance, did you have to get someone else to handle that, not you?
I dealt with the bookkeeper, generated the checks, but his two female friends were the ones that stamped them.
And with regards to his two female friends here, were the employees of Death Row Records?
One was an artist, Michelle, and then the other one, Miss Hawkins. She was just a girlfriend.
Now, you are aware that at the time that Mr. Knight was involved in this thing that happened in Las Vegas and finally gets revoked on probation, that his record label was valued somewhere around, what, $500 million?
I heard 3, but
Okay,
it was up there.
all right. So it's a pretty significant asset, right?
Correct.
Now, out of all of this, you are the general manager. You have access to all of it.
I guess I was the one he trusted at the time.
No further questions, Tony.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Wright. You are excused and you're free to go.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that's it for the presentation of witnesses today. We'll be in recess. We're going to come back at 1 p.m. tomorrow because I have a calendar in the morning. So I'm going to read the admonishment and then you're excused for the day. During the recess, you are admonished not to talk or converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected to the trial, or read, watch, or listen to any report or commentary on the trial of any person connected with this case by any medium of information, including without limitation, newspaper, television,
Sorry, y'all. I had to rewind it just a tad because I on my phone and I didn't hear if she said they were coming back at 1 o'clock. And I think I've gone back too far. Let's see.
Alexander's responsibility. And I
Excuse
didn't
me.
hear from him. Didn't hear from him.
Okay. Was there anything in writing regarding the transfer of management power to you over death row records?
I wouldn't call it power. Just, dealing with the day-to-day operation. The one that signed people, artists for him. I did everything for him. I dealt with his women. I dealt with his parents. I dealt with pretty much everything while he was incarcerated. And generally, because I was going back and forth, seeing him, the 4 days, I spent hours on the phone with him. And I was just his point of contact person.
So was there anything in writing regarding that?
Not to my knowledge, other than,
Okay, were there any witnesses to it?
well, there's a young lady sitting in here right now that I signed, while he was incarcerated to the record label.
There was a writing?
I'm sorry.
You signed some, what did you
You don't
sign?
sign her as an artist.
Okay. State any questions based on those answers?
Nothing state.
Defense?
I do.
Okay.
All right, so I want to make sure I'm clear. You become the general manager of Death Row Records. And what was your job responsibilities?
I did everything, to be honest. I brought Miss Shakur up to the prison to meet with him. I was talked to several, putting the albums together. When I met with Jimmy Iovine, who was our distributor at the time, negotiated deals with them. Everything I did was approved by Mr. Knight, but I was his point of contact.
Did you ever have a power of attorney signed by Mr. Knight to sign on his behalf?
No, what I would do is have everything generated, and I would send it. His attorney would come visit him on Tuesdays. If it was something real important, he would sign it on Tuesdays. And if I needed before then, he was married to a young lady by the name of Michelle. Or at least she thought they were married. And
No, he didn't.
she was signed. She had the power of attorney to sign, but she didn't deal with anyone. And then we also had a rubber
He
stamp
didn't say that about
that,
Michelle.
two of his female friends had to sign checks or to sign some contracts if they would take them.
So if there was anything wrong with the bank account, for instance, did you have to get someone else to handle that, not you?
I dealt with the bookkeeper, generated the
You
check,
have this audacity, child.
but his two female friends were the ones that stamped them.
And with regards to his two female friends here, were the employees of Death Row Records?
One was an artist, Michelle, and then the other one, Miss Hawkins. She was just a girlfriend.
Now, you are aware that at the time that Mr. Knight was involved in this thing that happened in Las Vegas and finally gets revoked on probation, that his record label was valued somewhere around, what, $500 million?
I heard 3, but
Okay,
it was up there.
all right. So it's a pretty significant asset, right?
Correct.
Now, out of all of this, you are the general manager. You have access to all of it.
I guess I was the one he trusted at the time.
No further questions, John.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Wright. You are excused and you're free to go.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that's it for the presentation of witnesses today. We'll be in recess. We're going to come back at 1 p.m. tomorrow.
1
Because I have
p.m.
a calendar in the morning. So I'm going to read the admonishment and then you're excused for the day. During
All right,
recess,
that's
you
what
are
I needed
admonished
to
not to
hear.
talk or converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected to the trial.
We can go ahead and pause it. That's what I want to hear. So tomorrow we won't come back to 1. So it's really basically going to be a half a day. And I will, so let me make sure, because I have to look at the time. I know that they're 2 hours. So it'll be 3 o'clock before, so we'll start the stream at about 2:30. It'll be 3 o'clock. So we'll start on time tomorrow because it's going to be a short day. So we'll start on time. We'll be fine because we won't have to worry about lunch because they would have, if they're coming back at 1 o'clock, they would have already I hope she admonished them. I'm not going to listen to it. I'm just going to cut it off. She would admonish them to get to lunch, eat. So then they can just do that 4 hours and be done. So we'll see what tomorrow is. So far they've burned through 12 witnesses. So I'm trying to, like I said, basically today they've shown that there was a crime. They show how the police handled that crime. They talk, basically more I got out of it is chain of custody. They're making sure that they show that the police were doing their jobs. Because again, the defense says he wants to separate fact from fiction. And so basically what the prosecution is doing is showing them all the evidence that they have outside of what Keefe D said. That other thing. I think the witness that, like I said, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 helped the prosecution. I think witness James McDonald and Reggie Wright, I don't know exactly what they did, but I think it was interesting to see that James McDonald was able to get in. Man, you hurting your client. And they let him ramble like that. That helped the prosecution, so to speak, because it was an undercurrent that he knew he did something, but he wasn't trying to snitch to get him put in jail. Reggie Wright, he just gave me opportunist type situation. He did what he did. He did his job, but he did clarify some information for me in regards to, I understood that there was some tension between Suge and Tupac, but according to him, that tension had everything to do with get my thing up. Had everything to do with Suge Knight not being on time, and Tupac wanted to be on time for the fight. So there was a level of tension, and what I've heard about Tupac, he gets a little hype. So that explains it. It's not as in depth as I thought I wanted to, but it does explain when people were talking about that Suge and Tupac were the wording that they used was that they were beefing, but it seems like it was more of that particular night. Now, I did hear that Tupac was not happy about monies that he wasn't getting, but I don't think that they're going to bring that information up, because that information I don't think is relative to the case, because Suge Knight is not on trial for anything that had to do with Tupac. So, all right, people, I'm gonna put my flyer up, and we will be back here at 3 p.m. tomorrow to go into day 3 of Nevada versus Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. This is the trial for the murder of Tupac. All right, people. We do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye-bye.